This is Madia-as Digdigan Buenaflor, extending an invitation to each and every one of you everywhere, as my way of commemorating the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. I will read and serialize my novel, The Blood of Three, starting on Tuesday, August 27, and continuing episodes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Follow the drama on my YouTube channel. May we forever exhale and inhale love and peace. Chapter 4. Every week at 1 in the afternoon of Sunday, Mr. Miura went to the garrison kitchen and collected the leftover of the food that his friend Tanaka, the cook, secretly kept and set aside for him. Mr. Miura even volunteered to wash the dishes so he could salvage every bit of food left in the plates. Sunday was when Tanaka prepared hearty meals at the garrison, and leftovers were more plentiful. Mr. Miura placed all kinds of food into 2 big pails, a mixture of leftover rice, chicken bones, fish bones, mashed vegetables, potatoes, or anything he could lay his hands on. Happily, he carried the pails out of the garrison. For our pig, he always stole the cards whenever they got curious. They did not question him again after one look at the unsightly mash inside his pails. Mr. Miura was excitedly greeted by Lota as soon as he reached home. "How is it, Mahal?" she lovingly asked him. "Not as much as last week's," he sadly answered, showing his wife the 2 half-filled containers. "Food must be really scarce even inside the garrison." She shook her head. "But don't worry, I have some boiled cassava which I was able to dig out from our garden to supplement this. Don't you think this smells a little?" Mr. Miura was a bit concerned. "I'll do something, don't you worry. I'll recook everything that's safe to eat." Lota hurriedly went through the picking out of the raw potatoes from the mixture, separating the rice soaked in broth, rinsing this from its usual sweet-sour taste, taking out the chicken bones to reboil with the hope of extracting flavor if there was still any left. She recooked the food with her homegrown herbs, giving the food a much improved taste. From their garden, they were able to supplement whatever Mr. Miura got from the garrison with green bananas, yams, vegetables, cassavas. Joybell became an expert in wrapping food. She was now part of all this and enjoyed the opportunity. The first time Joybell witnessed this unusual undertaking of her parents, she did not have an inkling of why they were doing it. "Daddy," she once asked, "where are you bringing this food?" "To the poor and hungry children outside the next city." "But Daddy, do you think it will taste all right?" "I see to it that it does," it was Lota who answered. "Your daddy won't give anything to the children that would make them sick. But they are just leftovers. They're seasoned and able to comprehend how such kind of food would still be good for the body." "Yes," Mr. Miura answered with a sad look in his eyes, "but it is all we could afford to give." "Who tells you to do this, Daddy?" "No one," he replied while passing the banana leaf over the fire to make it pliant. "Then why do you do it?" "Because I love children, just as I love you," he explained, wiping clean the heated banana leaf. "Those little children are hungry." He started to cut the heated banana leaf into small portions. "I see," Joybell sadly nodded. "We always have food because we are outside the city and able to produce our food. I think you better come with us. Then you would really understand what I mean." At first, Mr. Miura did not want Joybell to see the sufferings of children, for he wanted to spare her the sight, but now he believed it was time for her to really understand the meaning of charity and the joy there was in giving. "What a big heart you have, you and Mommy. What good is the heart if it would not feel love and compassion and charity?" Joybell sighed as she looked at her parents again, this time wrapping their preparations into small packs in banana leaf. Each contained a slice of boiled cassava, a half ladle of rice mixed with vegetables, and potatoes cooked in chicken bone broth with salt and herb for flavoring. She remembered that first trip she made with her parents. They rode a cart pulled by a carabao, the water buffalo, which her mother had borrowed from Joybel's friend Mario's family. It took them close to 2 hours to reach the fringes of the nearest city, which was totally in ruins from the fire started by the guerrillas to prevent the Japanese from occupying the buildings, and finished by the Japanese, who retaliated and burned down the rest of the city, rendering the civilians homeless. They walked toward a group of children who were ravaging for food through piles of flies-infested garbage dumped in a muddy ditch. They scoured the rotting pile, digging frail fingers like chicken, searching for worms. They were in rags and reeked of sweat, their haggard faces begrimed with dirt, their arms and legs scaly and dry and ravaged with skin ulcers, their wrinkled skin loosely wrapped their visible bones. As soon as Mr. Miura put down his basket and called out to them, "Come, I have some food for you," the children, almost as one, turned to his direction, and their sunken eyes suddenly brightened with excitement. Then, like a herd of cows, they stampeded toward him, pushing him out of balance as they frantically digged their hands into the basket and devoured the food, including the banana wrappers. Joybel was later informed by Mr. Miura that this was a new location they visited, since the first one was abandoned by the children when dead bodies were dumped there by the Japanese. "No, don't touch that," a chorus of frantic voices came from the direction of their mothers, who rushed toward their children, each one pulling her child by the hand, snatching from their mouth the little food that was left there, and throwing those to the ground in front of Mr. Miura, Lota, and Joybel. "Don't eat anything that he gives you," one mother, so frail she didn't have the strength to pull herself back from leaning to her side, but fired with enough anger to admonish them. "He is a Japanese. He will poison you." Mr. Miura was dumbfounded. "He is a good Japanese. He is your friend," Lota explained, for it broke her heart to see her husband treated this way. "You are a traitor," shouted another woman at Lota. "You prevented the Japanese so you could eat. We are not your kind. He is my husband. He only gives your children food, which they badly need." "We don't need your food. We will die of hunger, but we will die with honor. You make us suffer because of your war." The woman stepped forward, pointing an accusing finger at Mr. Miura. "Please, give my husband a chance to help your children. He is a Japanese, but just like you, he does not like this war. Believe me, we don't want this war. And just like you, we suffer too in ways that you haven't." Lota could no longer hold back her tears as she held Joybel close to her. "We don't need your help. Go back to where you belong." An embittered woman picked up stones. "You killed my husband, you Japanese. You tortured him. You forced a pail of water into his mouth and hanged his bloated body at his public square for display." She was not sobbing. "Go live before I kill you." The woman was hysterical, throwing stones at Mr. Miura. Mr. Miura tried to shield himself from the stones with his bare hands. "Lota, we better leave." It was Mr. Miura who calmly took his wife and daughter away. Tearful, Lota glanced back at the woman, not with anger, but with empathy. The raging woman was now laughing hysterically and cradling a piece of burned wood close to her bosom. Then she was calm, and she hummed a lullaby, as if putting a baby to sleep, as she walked away from the group. "She must have lost her baby," Lota mumbled. After throwing the Miuras a last look which was filled with contempt, the women turned away, leaving their children behind. The Miuras had not yet gone far when they heard a sudden commotion. Together they turned to look. The children were competing with 3 skinny dogs, fighting over the scattered food on the ground, now powdered with dust. And as they looked farther, they saw the group of women, the mothers, looking back in pain at the sight they just witnessed. It was a bitter experience for Joybel, but she had learned to adopt her father's philosophy of sowing love where there was hatred, until love replaced hate. They did not stop. They understood how the civilians felt about them. They knew that it would take time and patience, love and understanding to make the civilians accept them. The next time they visited the children, the mothers were no longer there to stop them. Perhaps they deliberately did this to enable their children to partake of the food that the Miuras brought them. They were about to leave when they heard a moaning from a nearby sagging structure that was once a public toilet. One of the children informed them. Mr. Miura peeped in, stepped back from the stench. What this show shocked them. Lota pulled back Joybell, but she insisted she could handle whatever it was. Yet she staggered back from the side. It was a man, an old man. His body, nothing more than a skeleton, wrapped in gnarled, scabious, rotted skin, half clothed in tattered sackcloth that must have stuck to his body for months. Curled in a corner, his head resting on a toilet seat, flies picking on his body, his gaping lips cracked, his sunken eyes blank, but something from within was crying out for help. Water, food, he whispered, greeting a couple of blackened teeth as he struggled to move his cramped leg. Who are you? Lota was in tears. The man tried to mumble, no. His name is Nano, a small boy behind, Lota answered. He is 12 years old, like me. He was the town water boy. Mother used to pay him a nickel for 2 pails of water he fetched from the well. My God, is all Lota could answer. He looked so old, one could mistake him for an old man. His mangy hair, completely gray, became the breeding place of the buzzing flies. Why do you stay here? Nano just pointed to his leg that was swollen to his thigh. Slowly, he tried to pull the newspaper he used as bandage over the skin ulcer that had eaten his flesh to the bone. Rita was aware of the affliction of the civilians, especially of children, an epidemic caused by malnutrition and poor hygiene. No medicine was found effective or even available, except for boiled guava leaves, which, if it helped, did not do much. Water, food, Nano moaned again. But the Miuras had given away all the food they brought along. Joybell found a banana leaf on the bottom of their basket with morsels of food that had dropped from the wrapped packs. With hesitation, she pushed the basket to Nano, hoping he wouldn't take it. But with feverish speed and shaking hands, Nano touched the banana leaf, ran his tongue all over it, and licked it clean, then proceeded to eat the leaves as well, all of it. The boy of 12 came back and pushed a rusty can, half filled with water that must have come from the nearby ditch, but Nano gulped it down before Lota could protest. We'll be back with food and water, Mr. Miura mumbled. Joybell was crying when they turned away. Their hearts were breaking. The next day, the Miuras came back with food and water for Nano. There was no moaning. Instead, they heard the buzzing of a swarm of flies hovering over Nano's body. They came too late for him, and before they could react, someone snatched the basket from Lota. It was an old woman digging into the food meant for Nano. Joybell had painfully lived with the memories. She was determined to do her part, wherever and whenever she could be of help. Well, we're all done, Lota announced, after she finished wrapping the last unfinished pack she took over from Joybell's hands. Let's hurry, the children are waiting, Mr. Miura's voice jolted Joybell from her thoughts. As the Miuras continued to visit other areas of the city fringes, they witnessed children doing, at their tender age, work which were formerly done by older people, by their fathers who had fled to the mountains to escape captivity and became guerrillas. The children helped their mothers build their homes from scrap wood and crates and skirts corrugated metal sheets. Later, the Miuras avoided the city and concentrated in the outskirts of their own town, where they found children in houses which were built either with nipa palms or kogon leaves and bamboo, using a one-room hut where everything from cooking to washing, eating to sleeping was done, the floor always smelling of dried fish. Some lived under thatched roof with only the earth for floor. An outhouse toilet was usually shared by several families, and so with a common ground well. People would take a bath beside the well, and the same water would flow back into the well, yet people did not seem to be bothered by it. Babies were born without any assistance or on occasion with the help of a midwife who had to use whatever improvised equipment was available. Babies had their first crawl on the damp earthen floor. It was all God's will that they survive the hunger and the cold nights. Most families subsisted on just one meal a day, consisting of cold porridge with salt or boiled banana stalks, a kind of food usually fit only for pigs' meals. These sins spurred the Miuras to do even more for them. Their desire to help grow stronger every day. These were partly due to the experiences Mr. Miura had when he was still a small boy back in Japan. He had come from a poor family and later orphaned at a very young age. Life had been hard, but people in their small fishing village helped one another. The meager food seemed to exponentially multiply when shared. From this beginning, he took with him the value of neighborliness and sharing. That and his marriage to an inherently generous Lota made it a second nature for his family to embark in what they considered a God-given opportunity to live their lives for the higher good. This has been a way of life for them in peace and in war. The Japanese did not extend them any help except for the cook Tanaka, giving him access to the leftover from the garrison kitchen, and from Oku, the dishwasher, in exchange for Mr. Miura taking over his dishwashing job and for a free haircut. As always, quid pro quo. Mr. Miura tried to be self-sufficient without, if he could help it, depending on others, especially those extending help only if they got something in return. The quid pro quo, I scratch your back, you scratch my back, kind. To him, generosity was outright giving and sharing without expectation for returns. With this in mind, he created his own source of food to share with those who needed the most. So he painstakingly moved in his makeshift wheelbarrow the soil from the garrison dumping place, converted it into a fertile and productive garden of vegetables, yams, cassavas, banana plants, and herbs. He could have loved to raise pigs or chicken, but by doing so, feeding this would be taking away some of the food meant for the children. Having learned to fish as a child in Japan, he tried fishing at a nearby river. But after seeing children catching fish that moments before were biting on human waste floating all over, apparently coming from the previous night users at a nearby bridge, which served as the communal latrine, he gave that up. Then he tried harvesting mushrooms that sprouted overnight after the rain, but that too he had to let go. He found out no place was spared being used as public toilet, under bushes, beneath coconut groves, everywhere. And since paper wasn't available, sticks, any stick and corn husks became substitutes, which by necessity was used and reused after a cleansing from the rain. Unfortunately, those were the sites where mushrooms flourished. Their giving of food to their neighbors' children was only one of the many kindnesses which the Miuras practiced. He made toys such as small carts, toys, tops, yo-yos, and kites for the boys, and small nipa hats, pots, and pans out of clay for the girls. Lota sewed rag dolls too. He hated to see children become involved in the cruelty and ugliness of war. He wanted them carefree and happy. Joybell found new friends, many of them. The Miuras taught the children how to sing. They taught them Filipino, American, and Japanese songs. The Filipino children began to get less fearful of the Japanese soldiers as they were the very first time they saw them. They even started to venture to the garrison gate and sang for the guards who handed them candies in return. They became audience to one Japanese soldier's magic as he boasted to them, holding a rolled handkerchief in one hand and pulling with another the tip of the handkerchief. "Look, American, big, tall," and continued to pull up the handkerchief until it bent over, but weak and false. Now he pushed back the handkerchief and pulled up an inch. Now Japan small, short. The handkerchief remained erect but strong. He prodded the children to applaud, and they did, hesitatingly. Marius scratched his head and looked up at Joybell, who smiled back and nodded at him. The children became so comfortable with the soldiers that one dusk they overstayed at the public square playing around when suddenly, from the ditch at both sides of the street, soldiers jumped up and lunged at the opposite group with bayonets on rifles' ends. A drill that almost gored one of the children had Joybell not grabbed the girl in time. That put a stop to the children sauntering in the public square after dark. In so many ways, the Miura made every effort not to allow war to dampen whatever little joy there was left in the children. That's all for today, to be continued on Tuesdays and Thursdays. May we all forever exhale and inhale love and peace. I hope you will inspire me with a like, share, and subscribe.